would love if this would have been taken care of in 1968 or in 1963 when he gave the I Have a Dream speech, Dr. King. And so, but that is not the reality. I can't help it. You can't help it. So why are we still talking about why did they do that to Target? Or like, why are they doing this? And why are they doing that? And I'm like, how are you more concerned with the looting and the destruction of Capitol than you are with people being murdered? And as I said, the civil rights movement was no sing-song, just kumbaya movement. Stuff had to go down. Windows had to be broken then. Capitol had to be destroyed then. And of course, the police, protecting Capitol as they do, came full force at black people, because they, not only are they restricting the free space, and they are letting you know that you are not wanted and that you need to shut your mouth. You are black and you don't have a right to speak up. And so all of these things that we are seeing today are not new. The riots of 1968 that followed Dr. King's assassination, I think, was about 10 days. I think on the 6th day, that's when we got the Civil Rights Act of 68. And so we have seen time and time again the slave rebellions. That's when we got the emancipation, when slaves start burning things down and start asserting themselves. We see that with the civil rights movement, when black people were just like, y'all killed Dr. King, so we are just about to go for what we know. We're not about to just appease. We're not about to continue with the respectability politics, which is something I'm going to get into in this video. And so we are not about to keep doing that. We are just about to just let loose, because clearly nothing is working. So, and Fannie Lou Hamer stated this so eloquently. She said that this looting and these riots, she said this back in the 60s. She said this probably in like 68. This is not about us. This is not about people actually wanting to destroy someone's business. This is not about actually wanting to destroy, this is not about actually wanting to destroy Capitol. But she was saying, these young people are saying that if I'm not going to enjoy the luxuries that this country has to offer, neither are you. If I don't have these rights, I'm going to make sure that no one does. So if I can't walk into Target and not be followed, I'm just going to burn the MFer down. And so, so I say that to say that I'm sorry, but it's still kind of early. Normally I'm just now waking up, so for me to be up doing a whole YouTube video, I mean, that's thumbs up from me. At least I'm gonna say it. But anyway, we see that, and we see the destruction of Capitol gets the attention of the powers that be, because they know that Target's gonna be fine. A black business owner in Houston spoke out and said, I'm with the protesters. Before anyone puts any words in my mouth, I'm with the protesters. My business is going to be fine. I'm going to rebuild, and I'm going to come back just as I was. And so what we're seeing now with the disbanding of Minneapolis Police Department didn't come with a democratic election and us going to the polls and solving this, as people somehow, some way, after all these years, think we can do. This came from those riots that we saw in Minneapolis. This came with those fires, the burning of the police station, looting Target, and just all out, mayhem. That got the attention of the people. You do that, you get attention. No one is going to, I'm not going to say no one, but change is not going to come, or the needle is not going to be moved with just marching up a street. That would be nice, and that would be easy. But it's just not going to come. So I'm happy that I'm seeing the persistence of people going out and protesting. And of course, the police, being who they are going to uphold the status quo and, of course, play like the victims when they're the ones inciting the violence. They're going to pepper spray the protesters. And as we saw in Atlanta, Georgia, the police literally breaking out the windows and tasing the what it was two people. It was a young woman and a young man, two college students. And so we saw that 5 out of 6 of them were black. When some of my fellow black folks try to say maybe black people could go on the force and reform and do this, and no. So we saw that, and I'm jumping around here. Like I said, this is going to be a conversation, so it's not going to be exactly linear, but I'm trying to make it linear. I'm going to eventually come to 2020, as I keep referring back to anyway. But anyway, so I left off with 1968. So in 1970 is when we start to see police reform start to take a major platform, and law and order become a major political calling card. Richard Nixon in 1968, when he ran for president, was the candidate of law and order. I'm going to get America back to law and order. We are going to have law and order in our streets. We are not going to continue to have these protests because, just disclaimer, if any of you didn't know, Nixon was incredibly anti-black. Nixon had nothing for a black person. Let me read you this quote from one of his aides of his administration. This is from John Ehrlichman, counsel and assistant to U.S. President Nixon. Why the war on drug users? Because, of course, Nixon was the first to coin the war on drugs, which is the war on black people, if you didn't know already. Ehrlichman said, "You want to know what this is really all about? Nixon had two enemies. The anti-war left, because, of course, anti-war protesters were also very criminalized, brutalized, all of that. Anti-war left, and black people. We knew we couldn't make it illegal to be either against the war or black. But by getting the public to associate the hippies with marijuana and blacks with heroin, and then criminalizing them both heavily, we could disrupt those communities. Did we know we were lying about the drugs? Of course we did." These are the words of someone who was the right-hand man of President Nixon in the administration. So when we begin to see the war on drugs and just the police beginning to swarm and almost like a virus come in to black communities and begin to just over-police them and any and everything, just taking black men to jail. We see in the 70s, because in the 70s, after the Civil Rights Movement, we begin to see the wealth gap of white and black people shrink for the first time. Black people are owning homes, black people are going to school, black people are accruing some wealth that had never been accrued in 100 years post-slavery. So 1970s coming, we begin to see that. So Nixon, being the president of the United States, is most aware of this than anyone. And so he begins the militarization of the American police force and flooding black communities with police officers, and just it almost like a knife went through the black community, severing them, sending all these black men to prison. Because as the 70s continue and and this heightens, Reagan comes in and crack comes in, and then it just almost reaches like a fever pitch. Crack, of course, the cheaper, lesser value version of cocaine, floods the black communities, and the police follow suit. And of course, crack was Reagan put crack in the black communities. His administration did anyway. And so the war on drugs, of course, turned into it was always the war on black people, but it became even more apparent that it was the war on black people. And so crack takes over, and we see young men just go to prison for 30 years, 20 years, life, for the rest of their life for nothing. And even if they and of course this has come out that police were planting drugs on boys. They would stop black people, of course, the restriction of public space. And black people standing on the corner, just standing on the corner, they stopped them and questioned them and harassed them for just existing as a black man or woman. And then before you know it, they're going downtown and they have this and they have all these charges stacked against them. And then the term mass incarceration starts to take its form. We begin to see just black people already. I mean, in the 70s is when black people start flooding, in just record amounts, and flooding jail cells, and then the 80s, as I said, with the onset of crack, we see it begin to become inextricably linked to cocaine. Well, crack cocaine, and so police. Let me go back to that article I meant to reference earlier, because before, well, I guess I'll touch on that a little bit. Of course, segregation didn't end with Jim Crow. It just found its way in housing. And Chicago, where I went to college at, is probably, and I thought Cleveland was segregated. Chicago is one of the most segregated, if not the most segregated city I've ever been in my life. And so it was not hard to police black communities because they were all lumped together. You could go to this one community and just terrorize. And that's what police did, because they would go to these communities that they had no interest in. And of course, as we know, police officers have been found out to be in the KKK, and the KKK made it was almost like a mission to infiltrate the police force, to harm, terrorize, everything, arrest black people. And so we begin to see this in the media, black people being these criminals, and all we see is black people in crack, and black people being arrested, and black people doing this. And so that almost becomes the like token for black people, that people associate black people with crime. As that didn't come with the Reagan era, but it was definitely expanded by the Reagan era, when crack became so ubiquitous everywhere in the black community. It was just like they were linked. They were like hand in hand almost, in the media at least. And then, of course, selling drugs became linked to black people, and doing drugs, of course, and crime, and all of these things that we know. Black people are not the only people committing crime. And then the myth of black on black crime begins to take form. And the racist myth and trope that it is, because we know that black people are not committing crimes against black people at any higher rate than white people on white people, or any race. Like, there's no crisis in that. It just doesn't get the same media attention that we have seen black people get. And so police, knowing the institution that they serve, they know that this institution is meant to uphold white supremacy and uphold white comfort, so, and white wealth, of course. And so they go into these communities and just cause hell. They wreak havoc, and they profile, and as Nixon said, they criminalize blackness. They could just take you to jail, just on the suspicion that you might have had drugs, or on the suspicion that you had a weapon, or this or that. To speak to that, my cousin, her friend was just killed by an off-duty cop, because he thought, my cousin's friend, his name was Desmond, he thought Desmond had a weapon, and shot him dead. Searched him, no weapon was found. That man still hasn't been charged, and he was murdered in April, I want to say, so about 2 months ago, or end of March, so maybe even close to 3 months ago. So that becomes, and like I said, the police know the institution that they serve, and so they, of course, as they do, exploited that. And I'm sorry, I zoned out for a second, thinking about something else, thinking about what I'm doing after this video. But anyways, they took that and just, of course, used it to their advantage. They, like I keep repeating, the justice system built on the backs and the tears of black people. they made sure they made sure that they just crippled the black community. That's what I've been trying to get to. Losing my train of thought. I'm just talking to you guys like my friends, because that's what we are now. I've sat here and ran my mouth all this time. We're friends. And and so they use that to cripple the black community, ripping these men from their families, these sons from their mothers, just taking them at just when they're about to start their life and locking them up for 30 years. They come out, they are 50 years old, if they ever come out. And so we see crime, and like I said, black people being so chronically disenfranchised and not having the needs of their communities met. The police preyed on that. They preyed on people standing on the block selling drugs because they have no other way to make money. No one's going to hire them, or the school that they're in is not doing anything. It's not teaching them anything. Or with crack, someone in their house is doing crack, their provider is doing crack, so now they have to go out and make for themselves. So the police preyed on that, and of course that went from the Reagan-Bush era, and of course when H.W. Bush had his own presidency. And then I cannot only attach it to one side of the aisle, because Bill Clinton came in and did the 1994 crime bill, mandatory minimums, expanded the prison system, and even militarizes the police to the extent that we see today, and giving police all these weapons and tools and all of this things that it looks like they're going to war when they're going to do whatever. They're going to go sit on some corner and eat a box of donuts. Why do you need $3,000 worth of riot gear or war gear or whatever? And so, give me a moment. And Bill Clinton has come out in the last few years saying that his policy, his crime bill, didn't help anything, and it was bad policy. And I give him credit for taking accountability for that. But I don't believe that he was ignorant to that fact in 1994. I'm sure that he knew then, 26 years ago, that was bad policy. That was destructive policy. That was racist policy. He knew how that was going to go. And so, or maybe not. He lives in his rich white man's bubble, as white people do. They live in this bubble that they believe that America is this just saving grace. Let me say that. It's just this saving grace for them, and that America never does any wrong because they can exist in their bubble of whiteness, and the police have given them that luxury. And so with the 94 crime bill, the mandatory minimums, 3 strikes, anything. Like 3 strikes and they put you to prison. They put you in prison forever. Mandatory minimums, you can do the littlest thing and you get 10 years because maybe you have priors. And so that exacerbates the issue. We see the prison population, I think, double under Clinton. We see it go from 1 million to 2 million, just about 2 million people in prison. And so, and I'm saying all of this to say that this increasing of police presence and this increase of just law enforcement has not proven to be beneficial in any way. We have not seen, because we're not actually tackling the issue. We're trying to associate crime with just we're treating crime as an affinity rather than as a symptom of a deeper rooted issue. And that's what, like I was saying before, that's what police preyed on. They knew that they could just prey on the instability and the instability and the I'm losing my words. I have a whole degree and I'm losing my words. The instability and the just the shakiness, the rockiness of the black community. So they preyed on that, and they took that and they used it to lock up. I don't even know we could put a number to it, because I feel like as I'm speaking right now, the police are probably trying to arrest some black person in the war right now. Somewhere, the police are harassing a black person. and probably not even a mile away from my home. And so the 94 crime bill does that, and we move into the 21st century, and that crime bill was still in the books, of course, and we go through the 2000s, and then police, of course, acting as they act. In my family, I know we have had more than enough run-ins with the justice system and the police, and just the police putting their foot on the necks of black people. And so I'm speaking from experience. I'm not speaking from anything I know. My own relatives have been victim to this justice system. And so now we get to present day, and 2012, Trayvon Martin is killed by a civilian. George Zimmerman was not a cop, but we see him get acquitted. How, I don't know. And then here we are in 2020, 8 years later, and when I see those like the block of names, I can't, like, I don't even want to count how many names are on that picture. And with the abolition of police needs to come the abolition of whiteness. And no, I'm not talking about whiteness as a color. No, I'm not saying white people need to be made illegal. I'm talking about the ideology of whiteness, as I have repeated, that cops are meant to uphold. They are meant to uphold the comfort and the comfort of white people. And if you are not white, then you are other. White is considered natural. White is considered just how things should be. So if you are not that, you are not it. And that means that we are going to make sure that you know that you, like I was saying with being in Bay Village, we're going to make sure that you know you're not supposed to be here. And the police are going to make sure black people know you are black. And like O.J. Simpson said, he said, "I'm not black, I'm O.J." Okay. And when it came time for America to let him know how black he was when he was sitting on trial for murder, and him thinking that he was just this superhero Negro and he was above the black race, he was brought back down to his size. Because my mom always says, America will never fail to let you know that you are black, regardless of how much money you have. OJ, a very successful athlete, rich, beloved, everything. But when it came time to let him know that you can have all of this, but you are black, so stay in line, that's just what happened. And they nailed him to the wall. Although he didn't get convicted for the murder, 10 years later, after the trial, he was sent to prison for 33 years for stealing a photograph of himself. Of course, he's out now, but it took I think he did about 9 years of that stint. And so, yeah, I don't know. I do know, as I just explained to you all, but I don't know where to begin. I don't know where to end, because I feel like I could talk. I feel like even what I've said now is not even enough to explain the depth of the just the history of police and black people, and the severity of it, and how I don't care how many reforms you try to put on the books for these pigs. I'm just going to say it, for these pigs, they're still going to be what they are. They are just going to do what they do. They will continue to get around the reforms. The departments will continue to finagle and do whatever needs to be done so they can stay right where they are. And I was watching a video yesterday, I don't know which police department it was, but they were crying out how they don't want to be treated like animals, and they want to be treated with respect, and they don't want to be vilified. Excuse me. And they want to be, and they want all these things. And all I could hear was, stop treating us how we treat black people. Don't treat us like that. We do that. So I'm like, you have treated generations on top of generations of black people like this, and now when it comes time for you to answer for all of that, now you want to run and cry, and they threw this at me and they threw that at me. But what have you I mean, like, you are not innocent in this. And what caused this to all happen? Like, they're not just throwing things at you. This is a reaction. These protests and these just all out everything that we're doing right now all over the world, but here in America, everything that we're doing right now is a reaction to 400 years of oppression. This is not just a spur of the moment. We all jumped out of the bed and decided to go do this. This is 400 years in the making. And I'm only 22, but I feel 400 years of oppression crashing down on me. And I've only been alive for 22 years of it. And so, yeah, and I'm happy that we are here. Angela Davis, I was watching a video with her. She was saying how excited she is, and to hear Angela Davis say she's excited, a woman who lived through the Civil Rights Movement and the Black Panthers and all of that, and hear her saying she is excited, it's very inspiring. But it is, and I always share these things on my Instagram, just preventing burnout, because I know this is a lot. This is draining, especially for Black people. This is more than draining. This is like, sometimes I like zone out and just think about everything that is going on and everything that has happened. I read this post on Instagram, and it was saying, we are crying tears from Emmett Till. We're not just crying. These tears didn't just start with George Floyd. They didn't start with Trayvon Martin. Black people are still crying the tears of Emmett Till. How a 14-year-old infringing on whiteness, well, a white woman accused him of talking to her, winking at her, whatever. But his accusation basically was infringing his black self on whiteness. And just look up a picture, and that'll tell you what happened to him and how no one was charged for it. Because Black people are, like, the value of a Black life, it has been shown many times before that the value of Black life, it just is nothing. If we had not done this, George Floyd's murder would have been another day. It would have been another news cycle. And we would have been here June 10th? We would have been here June 10th talking about something else. But enough is enough. We are fed up. I'm not going to stand for it. I'm not going to continue to normalize my oppression, because I know I have a bachelor's degree and I know that I live a pretty comfortable life, but I know I'm still Black. I am still Black. I still have the same Black struggle that a Black person across town has, or a Black person across the country has, because I'm Black. I am that before I am everything. I'm Black. I'm Black on paper. I was Black in utero. When my mom found out she was pregnant with me, she knew what color that baby was going to be when I came out. So I am just not going to continue, like I've never been silent about it. I've always, of course, spoken my mind about it, spoken in college. But I feel like now this channel will allow me to just converse. And you'll see me lose my train of thought 10 times because I'm just talking. I don't have a script. I am just talking. And hopefully I imparted some knowledge. And I think my Twitter's on there. That's where I impart a lot of my knowledge. Because of course I can think about it and I can make a thread if need be. But yeah, and I want to continue talking about these things and just making these issues apparent, and not letting the light go down or light go off on this. I want to continue to shine a light. And I know my one voice is a one voice in many, but I want to say something. I don't want this to pass me by and not have said anything, and I have a whole communications degree. I keep saying I have a degree. I'm just excited. It's only been, 30 days. And I could scream it out this window right here. I have a degree, but I won't. And so, yeah. And I'm just going to leave it there. I need to come up with I'm reading Angela Davis's book, Are Prisons Obsolete? And I think I'm going to finish that today. And maybe I'll make a video talking about that. And I'll come back to some of these things that I talked about in here. And just the crisis. That's the crisis. The prison industrial complex is the crisis. Crime is not the crisis. And so talk about that. And yeah, I'm just going to take this as it goes. I'm not going to try to I'm gonna remain consistent with it, but I'm not gonna try to be like I said, I'm not scripted, so I'm just gonna come on here and talk to you all. So yeah, stay radical, stay loud, stay active, and I'll talk to you later.